Thank you.
Good for patients.
New question, the leader of the third party.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My question's for the Premier. A few days ago, an Ontario doctor named Sohail Gandhi wrote an article expressing his concern about the readiness of our hospitals for a surge in patients due to this year's flu. Specifically, he said, and I quote, "Ontario can't handle a surge in flu cases." Speaker, with many Ontario hospitals regularly operating over 100% capacity even before flu season takes its toll, will the Premier heed the warnings of doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners who are here with us in the gallery today, and all healthcare professionals, and finally give hospitals and frontline healthcare workers the resources they need to take care of the people of this province?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, I want to acknowledge the nurse practitioners who are here with us today, who do a fantastic job, Mr. Speaker. And we are so proud. Yes, all of them. And Mr. Speaker, I'm so proud of the support that our government has been able to give to nurse practitioners. We know that there is more that we can do to work with them as they lead nurse practitioner-led clinics, Mr. Speaker, as they practice to their full scope in our communities. Mr. Speaker, to the issue of the surge capacity, I know the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care will want to speak to this, but Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there is a need to expand the opportunities for hospitals, for the healthcare system to provide for that surge, which is why there are more beds that are being available. We are responding to that challenge, Mr. Speaker. We are working to solve the problem, and that's exactly why there will be an expansion of beds in the province.
Speaker, Dr. Gandhi noted that this summer there was a shortage of beds in neonatal intensive care units that affected the entire province. The Premier's Ministry of Health told reporters that this was a one-time event. But Dr. Gandhi says, quote, "This is just ridiculous." Health systems need to plan for the unexpected. Speaker, that's why it's so important that bed occupancy rates in hospitals stay at or below 85%. Ontario's hospitals are regularly exceeding 100% capacity. It's one thing when there's a bed shortage, Speaker, in the summer, when there's almost no flu cases to deal with. What will happen when already overcrowded hospitals are forced to take in even more patients this winter as the flu season is upon us?
Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Long-term care.
Well, once again, Mr. Speaker, the NDP are asking us to provide a solution. We provide a solution, and they don't like our solution, and they seem to oppose everything that we do, every single investment in our healthcare system. Not the least of was our investment of $7 billion additional funds over the next 3 years in our healthcare budget that they voted against, Mr. Speaker. But just a few weeks ago, we announced 2,000 additional beds and spaces across this province, including 1,200 new acute care beds that would address capacity issues. By the way, the vast majority of our hospitals, unlike what the leader of the third party said, the vast majority are well within capacity, Mr. Speaker. But we made that investment of 1,200 new acute care beds, as well as more than 500 transitional spaces, like the Humber site, the former Humber River Hospital site, that they don't like, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Well, Speaker, healthcare professionals warned that this year might be a particularly bad year for the flu in Ontario. Ontarians are rightly concerned about where people are going to go when hospitals are already bursting at the seams. Dr. Gandhi says, and I'm going to quote him again, "We know the hospital system has no surge capacity. If you're already at 110%, where's the room to surge?" Well, Premier, where is the room to surge in a place like Brampton Civic Hospital, where last year 4,352 patients were on stretchers in hallways getting care?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, so I wonder what her members think when whether they approve or disapprove of the fact that we're adding 20 new acute inpatient beds to Windsor Regional Hospital. I wonder what the members from the Windsor area think about that, Mr. Speaker. Or London Health Sciences Centre, where we're adding 24 new acute care inpatient beds as well as an additional 24 acute care mental health beds to London Health Sciences Centre. I wonder what her MPPs from the London area think about that. Or Hamilton Health Sciences, the leader of the third party herself. What's her response to the 30 additional inpatient beds at Hamilton Health Sciences, the 3 neonatal intensive care unit beds we're adding to Hamilton Health
Answer.
Sciences, the 26 in the Niagara Health System, the 24 at St. Joseph's Community Health Centre in Hamilton, Mr. Speaker, the 22 at Lakeridge in Oshawa.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know what her members think.
Thank you. New question, the leader of the third party.
Thank you, Speaker. My next question is also for the Premier. There were no new commitments in this week's economic update to give families hope that when they go to the hospital, they're actually going to get a room and not a hallway, not a broom closet, not a shower room. The temporary beds that the Premier has announced, that the Minister was just talking about, don't even come close to meeting the glaring need for stable, predictable, adequate hospital funding. We have doctors speaking out, nurse practitioners speaking out, patients speaking out, because this situation is only going to get worse when the flu hits. Why is the Premier ignoring the advice of healthcare professionals and playing a very dangerous game with the health and safety of the people of Ontario?
Thank you. Premier,
Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Minister of Health, Long-Term Care.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are responding and we are investing and we are concerned about the potential of the record bad flu season that happened in Australia that could visit us this winter as well. That's why we're encouraging everyone to get a flu vaccine. But I find it curious that every single investment that we've made this year and last year and before that, the NDP has opposed. Their $500 million investment in our hospital operating budgets. They voted against it, Mr. Speaker. We worked closely with the Ontario Hospital Association precisely to create these 1,200 new acute care beds that we're investing in, Mr. Speaker, and they seem to oppose that as well. We're making 500 plus new beds available for transitional spaces, like the 150 at the former Humber River site on Finch Street here in the GTA, Mr. Speaker.
Answer.
They're opposed to that. Every single investment that we're making on behalf of our hospitals, our hardworking frontline healthcare workers, including our nurse practitioners, they seem to oppose,
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Well, Speaker, winter's coming, and the flu season is coming with it. We know from medical experts that it's going to be a particularly bad year. We know from medical experts and people using our hospitals that right now, before the flu season has taken its toll, people are already facing unacceptable conditions and delays in receiving hospital care. We know that hospital administrators and frontline staff are doing what they can to keep up, and we know that the Premier has failed to offer up a plan that will even make a dent in the overcrowding crisis that she and her Liberal government have helped create. When will the Premier take this bad flu season seriously, stop defending the actions of her health minister, and put her focus back where it should be, which is on the health and well-being of Ontario families?
Thank you. Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the third party is correct that winter's coming. Winter's coming. Winter's coming if that party ever returns to power in this province, Mr. Speaker. It will be a dark day. And for the benefit of our nurse practitioners and others that are watching today, it was that party, the 5 years that they were in power. I know they don't want to hear this, Mr. Speaker, but they closed 9,600 acute care hospital beds. They closed 24% of all the acute hospital beds in this province. Only beaten by the PCs, who closed 10,000, Mr. Speaker, but they were a close second. They closed 13% of the mental health beds in this province. In their last budget, they decreased hospital funding by 1%, and they reduced the overall healthcare budget by 0.6% in the second year of row. They took 230 drugs off of the formulary, Mr. Speaker, and they delisted home care. That's their record.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Speaker, I'm going to leave the Premier with one final thought from Dr. Gandhi. He said, and I quote, I find it very disturbing that the Liberals are joking about the health of the people of this province and the mess they've made in our hospital system, Speaker. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. Here's what Dr. Gandhi said. Physicians already know that due to the woeful mismanagement of the Ontario healthcare system by Premier Kathleen Wynne and her hapless Health Minister Eric Hoskins, Ontario hospitals simply don't have the resources to cope with the surge in patients. Clearly, the Premier and her Minister of Health have not inspired much confidence so far with their ability to handle a potential flu surge. There's an important role for the province to play here, Speaker. We need to ensure that Ontario families have the health care that they need, even during a surge caused by a particularly bad flu. Does the Premier plan to rethink her approach to hospital funding so that families can actually receive their medical treatment in rooms and not in hallways?
Thank you. Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, and Dr. Suhail Gandhi, I particularly enjoy his Huffington Post articles. I know that he likes to target me specifically, Mr. Speaker, but I appreciate that he's active and is putting his opinion forward. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, in the election, the leader of the third party refused to identify where the member from the member from Kitchener-Waterloo, the NDP candidate at the time, declared that they would find $600 million in annual savings from health and education. And so had they won that election in 2014, Mr. Speaker, we would have seen...
Might be somebody sitting in a different seat that I can't see. I'm not sure. I think he knows why I did it. Carry on.
So the member from Kitchener-Waterloo went on to say that I would go first to health to find those $600 million in cuts. I think that's on record as the worst campaign platform suggestion next to the PC commitment to cut 100,000 jobs, Mr. Speaker.
Answer. Thank you.